So welcome to the Laura and Benny Show.
Thank you very much for having me.
We have our very first guest of 2024. Do you feel honoured now that you're my joke?
I'm so honoured. I genuinely am so honoured. But also even just coming to your home and everything like that, it's so lovely.
Meeting
so
the puppy.
Meeting the puppy. Oh, I'd better not say her name now or she'll be over again.
No,
She's
don't.
having
Oh, yeah, you know dogs. Yeah.
So we're off to a great start.
Yeah.
100%.
And to actually start this properly, we better tell people who you are.
Yes.
This is Linda Foley.
Sorry. There's cakes on the table.
I'm introducing Linda.
You're introducing Linda?
The cake is not important.
It was very much, we're talking to home and homeliness.
Did you
And
bake these,
was so
Linda?
good.
I did.
Get out of town.
Did you?
I did.
Did you
I made
bake
them last night.
Did you really?
And my kids were like, how many are we going to get to keep? And I was like,
I actually-
6 for Laura and Benny, 6 for you.
I actually just assumed you bought them. You baked them. Oh my goodness.
Brilliant.
Who
You're very good.
I'd love
I'm
to be.
such a kiss ass. I'm like, ah.
So do you give
Show me my good life.
baked goods to all your couples?
No, I don't. That's not something I'm going to start. And I can't compete with, who do you have, even someone else on the
We
podcast.
do have Tara from Broken Spoons
Yes.
coming in.
So that's what I thought after I made them. I was like, what am I doing? She'll be coming now and, blowing me out of the water with some cake she'll be bringing later this week. But
Poor Tara's going to be home going, oh, sure, I'd have to bring cake.
yeah, exactly. Tara, yeah, exactly. Get on it. Get baking.
So Linda, you're a celebrant.
I am.
And we've seen you at quite a few weddings.
Yes.
We love working together. It's lovely.
I do.
I think we have a really kind of chilled and relaxed personality, but I find when we've met you as well, you're never kind of like flustered, you're never stressed, you're always just like going with the flow, smiley face, hug on arrival. I love it.
Do you know what I think it is as well? Is for me, I always say all the work is done.
Yeah.
The wedding day for me is the part where I get to come and soak up all the love and all the fun and everything. So all the work is done, all the back and forth and what you want and it's all finalized. So then on the day it is just let it play, let it happen, with also the caveat that if it doesn't go as we expected, please don't give it a second's thought,
Yeah, and we kind of say that, like, even whatever part of the day is, you can plan the hell out of the day, but actually
Absolutely.
let it happen. But one of the main reasons I think we get on and kind of like why we invited you in is kind of you have a nice, gentle approach. I mean, every personality has a different approach, whereby some people, celebrants come and they're very excited and they're kind of like making sure everybody's there and kind of running through everything and there's big announcements and everything. But like you have a nice, gentle approach and you kind of let the tone be set by the couple, I suppose, and what ceremony they have, rather than coming in beforehand and kind of being too kind of regimented or something. You've a nice, gentle approach to how the ceremony starts even. It's all very nice.
While
nice
controlling the crowd.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that, because I think what I say is to couples is I'm going to be there at least an hour beforehand, and I'm there if anybody wants to come to speak to me. But or if there is somebody maybe who's taking part in the ceremony, like tell them to pop up and we'll have a chat and I'll talk them through it. But yes, everyone's a bit nervous on the morning of a wedding. And I always say to couples, yeah, really cool, you'll be fine. But I know that they're going to have, whether it's good nerves or just excitement, there's going to be that adrenaline. So I'm just there. Normally it's with the groom if it's bride and groom. And I always say to him, your job is done. You're here. After that, you don't need to remember a thing. You don't need to remember anything we've discussed. This is my job. You're not looking after the photographs, Laura and Benny here. They're going to be looking after that. If you book the right suppliers, you can hand over and try to enjoy it as much as you can.
Yeah, and you're in that moment. You're kind of you're a guide rather than so. It's like you don't need to brief the groom for 20 minutes beforehand and really kind of ramp it up. It's like. You're a guide, you'll guide them through the whole ceremony. When they blank and kind of whatever the moment happens, it's okay.
And they don't need to remember anything.
Yeah. And it's really good you bring that up though, because like we'd be spending the morning with people, obviously they're sitting in their pre-dress to when they get dressed to when they go to the ceremony. And a lot of the time you'd be surprised the amount of discussions going on with they're trying to figure out themselves, okay, so I'm doing a reading, like but when do I get up, and when I walk up the aisle, which side do I sit on, and when I get up there, do I stay standing or do I sit down, and what do I do with the bouquet, and like people's brains just start running, they go running into all these little details. I always say to people, it's the exact same as yourself, Linda. You've hired the right people. You actually don't have to think about anything.
No.
All you have to do is arrive, be there, and we're going to be there in every way we can.
Exactly.
From cueing music between the two of us to right, you're next, walk up the aisle to when they get there to you're there and you're gonna line everything up for people. But But I suppose before we get into, I've got loads of stories with ceremonies and I can't wait to hear all your stories. Before we get into the actual day of, I think when people go to ceremonies, and especially when you see all these lovely elements being added and the poems and the readings and there's a little backstory about the couple and all these lovely bits and pieces, that doesn't just happen. There's actually a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and I suppose you guys have to write even scripts for the day. Do you want to tell us a bit about, like, from the booking side of things, kind of onto how the planning happenings before we get to the day, if that makes sense?
Absolutely, and that's when, as I say, all the work happens then. So on the day it's all like just press play and it'll all happen magically. But
we wish.
Yeah, exactly. We're trying to make it look great. Exactly. But what it is really is, so initial inquiry. If the couple are court based, I normally try and offer to meet with them in person, because my whole thing is, there's a lot of celebrants out there, a lot of solemnisers, and fantastic celebrants, and Cork now has so many celebrants, which is a really good thing.
It is. It's good to have choice. It is
100%, Laura, and there's enough work for everybody.
There's too many weddings in Dublin.
Yeah, but there are so many weddings. Exactly. Like now, I am saying no more often than I'm saying yes, which is really great, and that's obviously to suit
that's
my
a compliment
own lifestyle.
to you though as well.
Yeah, but it's also to suit my own lifestyle. It's not that I have 7 days a week weddings every week. But so sorry, from initial inquiry, I try to meet them in person if I can, if they're Cork based, because also at that point, if they come and meet me, we sit, we have a coffee, we have a chat. I nearly do like a full consultation then, the fact that we've all arranged to meet.
They don't even realise they're actually doing half the work.
They don't even realise they're doing it. And then afterwards, I think they say, God, we're so exhausted after that, we better just book her.
So your approach is to wear them down. Yeah, wear them down.
Especially the guy there, like, I couldn't go through all that.
Can you imagine at the end, so you're wrecked now, and you're out of caffeine, you book at me, you book at me.
Booking seat details. Exactly.
But that probably gives you a kind of a good guide as to their personality and really what they like or don't like, and you can kind of see more. And then when it does come to more of the kind of here's the general template of a ceremony and customize it, you can kind of give them good guidance as a starting point rather than doing it in reverse.
Exactly, and that's it. And I'm just joking about trying to lock them in. It is great because I actually have all the information I need at that point. Okay. Like we could be chatting for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Wow.
With our last co-ceremony that we did.
Katie and Cormac.
Exactly.
There you go.
We were together for about 3 hours.
Yeah, you were saying that,
yeah.
And Katie is that chatty person.
Katie's chatty,
loves conversation. Yeah.
So, like, I got more than what I needed for their ceremony. But it was so lovely.
It was a beautiful ceremony. It really was.
Yeah, but they're so lovely. And just chatting to them was so lovely.
Okay.
So yeah, it can range from an hour, got all the details, grand, we're ready to go, to something like that.
Yeah.
So sometimes I meet people in person and we'll do a full consultation, or otherwise we might do a Zoom, which I think everyone is availing of.
We're all so used to it
wonderful platform Zoom now, exactly.
And Zoom is as comfortable as being in front of person. I know it's nice to meet people face to face, but at the same time is Zoom, everybody is so comfortable and so familiar with video phones and everything like that it really does, it breaks the ice and everyone feels at ease.
And you know them.
It's like when you have a voice call, then it's kind of like, oh, I wish I could just have a video call, because having that kind of contact and seeing someone's genuine reaction does make a difference.
It makes a huge difference, it does.
Yeah.
So a lot of time it is on Zoom, and if it's on Zoom, I normally do just like a half-hour chat.
Yeah.
So I always say, just so you can get a good look at me.
Yeah.
See if you want to rule me in or definitely
But
rule me out.
it's true, because personality kind of comes into it as well, because everyone has such a different approach to, all suppliers have different approaches to like every area within it, and Celebrant's the exact same thing.
Exactly.
And I know we're joking about locking them in, but I know that you'd be similar to ourselves when it comes to, you'd have a chat with someone, I'd never get someone to decide there and then, even if they're trying to say, oh no, I'll book, you're like, no, have a chat between you and come back, make sure you're happy kind of thing. It's very important.
I always say, if the two of you, I might say, no, go away and have a chat about it, or when you go home in the car, or when we log off, I say, Laura might say, God, she was lovely, wasn't she? And Benny might say, she drove me bloody crazy. She's
but
too
it's fair enough.
But and I'm like, that's okay. That's okay.
It's all about matching. We always, whatever it is, whether it's when people are searching endless suppliers for different things, it's all about matching up, because we all have different personalities, and it's the same way. Everybody has different groups of friends. Everyone likes different films, music, and photos. Like it's
and how lovely that we are all unique. That we do want different things,
But it means that all the personalities out there will find their person, because as you know, like no two weddings are the same.
No,
like I've never said that wedding was exactly the same as that wedding. Do you know, ever? Which I think makes our jobs really interesting, and it kind of keeps you kind of motivated to the next one.
Exactly.
It is.
You know, like
No,
you
it
have to
totally is.
like people.
You do have to like
You do,
people.
100%.
Yeah, and how far out do you find that people will book their celebrant? Like, what's your lead time about?
Like I hear about people saying, "Oh, my books are open." I'm kind of easy enough. I mean, I know the blocks
the
of
same.
the year.
Yeah.
I kind of am.
We kind
Like
of leave it open.
2027?
plan.
Oh, yeah.
I look at it like I don't go away in April. Okay,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I've never, thankfully, had to ever,
Yes.
transfer,
Touch
to
wood.
a celebrant or
Touch
anything.
wood.
Exactly. But yeah, like I've 2026. There's quite a few for 2026.
Okay.
I haven't gone into
Yeah.
2027 yet. I haven't
But
had
they would book up to 2 years out.
Oh,
Yeah.
at least.
Yeah.
And
I
I'm
think
nearly
the
recommending it.
celebrant might be as early on as venue. It's kind of like you make that decision whether, say, you're going religious or you're going non-religious
Yes.
or whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
and then you kind of make that, and then you kind of do start to look. So like
Yeah.
if you're booking your church, you're trying to get in there, book your church. So in the same way, I think if you're deciding to go celebrant route, you're kind of like you're probably going to start looking quite early on.
I
in
think
the same
people
way.
are just starting to think that
yeah,
now, Benny.
yeah.
Because before, I definitely would think it was venue photographer. I really think that was the way.
100% right, because
Yeah.
I've actually really noticed this year, especially with the inquiries, people send you an email inquiry and they're just kind of giving you a little background to what their wedding is.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it would be like, this is my date and this is my venue, and that's all they would give me. Whereas now I'm actually saying, this is my date, this is my venue, this is my celebrant, and this is the time the ceremony is going to start at.
Yeah.
This is the information they're giving me. Like, it's going to be a 2 p.m. ceremony on site, say, for example. So you are right. I think it's actually people are starting to see that you also need to lock in the celebrant that you want, because I think the celebrant on the wedding day is probably one of the most important things you book, because it can completely change the ceremony. As in, each person that you book has a different approach to it, and it'll completely bring a different atmosphere to it.
Yeah.
Like we've seen obviously loads and loads of different celebrants, and everyone has their own way of doing it. But it does make but it does make a massive difference to the actual day. And then I suppose beforehand, how long before the wedding then would you actually have, I suppose, a pre-wedding chat to, I suppose, lock down what you want to do within the ceremony?
Yeah, so as I said, when I do the initial consultation, sometimes I get all the information there. That could be 2 years out.
Wow.
Yeah.
But obviously that information can change. There could be babies after arriving, new houses, there could be loads of stuff that happened. So yeah, we would meet again then nearer to the ceremony time. And what I'm saying lately to couples is, when you get your famous green folder,
Big time.
registration form, then we're really kind of in the countdown, or we're ready to go, and it's definitely happening on that date, and it's all really happening. Then we might meet again in person if there was an update, or I'll send through that first draft based on what we had, and we might just go back and forth via Zoom, or sometimes people email. And I always say to people as well, I know you'll have so many appointments, so many meetings. I don't want to be a head wreck to you that you're saying, God, we have to go meet that celebrant again.
Because it does become overwhelming towards the end for people. Yeah,
it can, especially in that final countdown. So I'm like, if we've done all our work together, if we've met 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I can take some of that pressure off you when you're going to see it here in front of you. I go off on tangents.
But I want to cut across. You mentioned green folder, and I always do. I want to flag something like have a green folder plan on the day. Absolutely. So I always try to check nice and early, particularly if you're going to church. Sometimes the priest will take it in the rehearsal, but sometimes the priest is even like, I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah, and we're told do not take ownership of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So sometimes.
But you need someone responsible though.
Yes.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
So the couple need to have a plan, and sometimes the groom can't be trusted, but a lot of time the groom has it, because the groom's going to be there early. Like you said, you might be there an hour beforehand. So it's a nice thing to drop off the green folder. You don't have to hang out with Linda for an hour if you're the groom type thing. You just drop it off, and it's a nice thing for yourself, because you just run through the paperwork and go, everything's in order, we're okay. But I always flag it nice and early has someone actually seen the green folder, and is there a green folder plan?
And that's so helpful.
Yeah.
It really is.
Was it there a couple of weeks ago? You were at the church, and I literally had just driven down the driveway away from the bride's house, and I'm very close to the church, and he rings me and he goes, oh, we don't have the green folder here, you have it. And I was there in my head going, not once did I see a green folder or hear mention of a green folder this morning, because usually when it's with the bride, which is rare, you hear about it kind of thing. So I'm there trying to ring people that I don't have to turn back, because if I turn back I'm going to miss something to get like, do you have it? In the end I ended up ringing the hairdresser being like, can you make sure
the suppliers who you book are like important, you're looking after
no, but it was great because I know her so well. I was like, can you make sure that there is a physical green folder? And in fairness, she did, and it got there. it probably would have got there anyway.
Yeah.
But it's in one of those moments where you're kind of going, she could have pulled up and I would have popped my head in the car door going, who is the green folder? She would, oh, it's back at home. And I know it was close, but then the ceremony's 10, 15 minutes later than it planned to be, and everyone's waiting.
And there's that knock-on effect.
It is, exactly, 100%.
And while we're on the green, we're going to come back to templates and pre-ceremony, right? That's where we are. But while we're on the green folder,
you're going to get Linda all confused now.
People are probably like, oh, what is a green folder type thing? But what we did,
and can it be a different colour? No.
We did a pre-ceremony, or this conversation podcast last night, and we came up with the term of love marriages. So have you ever done love marriage?
I listened to your podcast.
Good, because otherwise you're not going to understand what he's talking about.
God, I do. I'm getting very creeped out.
Laura wants to have a love marriage.
Yeah.
She has a legal marriage with me, but she wants a love marriage with me
I didn't
now.
say that, but you heard it, yeah.
On the podcast last night, he was talking about love marriages and legal marriages and religious marriages.
So we were kind of like saying, like, I suppose,
He went off on one.
In general, we're kind of like, you know, what's the driving force between what you're signing? So if you're in a religion, you kind of, there are documents when you go to a church that you sign and kind of go, we're on the register within the church. And then there's kind of like the register for the state and the legal side of it.
Yes.
Green folder people.
Yes.
And then there's just love. There's like just saying it because you actually mean it.
Yeah. It's completely made it up.
He's made it up,
and I don't understand at all.
You want to lock that man in or that woman in and kind of say,
I'll tell you my story. Myself and my husband Seamus were together for years and years. We bought our house, we had our son. I was always said, I don't want to get married. I
don't
never
need
want
to.
to get married. I don't care about getting married. I just want to love marriage.
Yeah.
No, I didn't want a marriage. I was like, we're fine. We don't need to
This is so funny that the celibate's like, I don't need a marriage.
So true. Exactly.
I know where this is going, lads, and it's going into which way you're voting in the referendum.
Oh, no. But I always said no, and it wasn't that he was begging me, but we were just like, we're cool, we're fine.
And would that be a durable relationship now that you had? Would you be voting yes or no now in a few weeks' time?
I'll tell you what, I did change my mind because we had our son, and then he was due to start school, and James was like, you know what, I really would like to get married before he starts school, and and then I was like, okay, let's just get married.
Yeah.
And we did, but talking about the love marriage and the legal marriage, legally getting married was so lovely. And it does feel different. Yeah. So I think it's like, it is a huge commitment, you know.
Well, when you're saying it in front of people,
absolutely.
And to write it down is, you are committing.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, if you take it serious, I'm sure there's someone out there who's just signed a bit of paper, but it's not, if you understand the importance of it and the kind of the seriousness of it, and like, that does mean something, and it creates that bit of tension in the same way you were saying about the aisle walk. There's something special about it. It's because it's happening. It happens once and it is genuinely happening.
And it is such a commitment, and you were saying, I choose you.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you, Linda.
Yeah.
He goes off on one sometimes, and I'm like, what are you talking about? So I'm happy now that we're ganging up on him.
Yes.
This is great now that you've got two people against one.
No one has come to you yet and said, I don't want to do the legal stuff. We just want you to be the master of ceremonies in our ceremony. Or have you ever done that?
I absolutely have.
Wow,
because so I'm a celebrant. I started my training in 2017.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that was with an organisation where when I finished my training, I wasn't on the HSE Registered Solemnisers. So I was what they call probably like an independent celebrant. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't connected to any organisation. I couldn't do the legal signing. Okay. Which was absolutely fine and it was lovely. So all those ceremonies were
love ceremonies.
Love ceremonies.
And we've made a term up about it.
A lot of those ceremonies, again, so people understand, is they may have done the legal bit in the where people say, like, our parents would have said, oh, they're just going to the registry office, and there used to be a real downer on it. But now it's like there's more people who are actually, instead of going into the registry office, you're doing the registry office, say, in a hotel, effectively, because you're a representative, and you can sign as a solemniser, you can legally solemnize that wedding. So that's the same power as someone in the registry office as the old generation would refer to. They have the power to legally sign and marry people. So those weddings, they probably did do a legal piece, but what you're saying is, at that stage, you were doing the non-legal piece.
So it's what we call a symbolic, what I used to call a symbolic ceremony, now I'll call it the love ceremony.
Does it have to be like love, though? Does it have to like that?
So that's it. But you would have done ceremonies whereby
they all were, until then I went back and did training like 3 years ago now. And that organisation that I can speak about, Entius, they then nominated me to be on the Register of Legal Solemnisers with the HSE.
Yeah.
And
So
while
it's-
we're on that subject, so do you want to tell us a bit about what Entheos Ireland actually is? It Entheos Ireland? Is that the full name of it?
It is,
How?
I mean, they'll be probably branching out. So
Sure.
it's like, I think we branded as Entius because I think, they may be
going beyond Ireland. Okay,
But so as I said, I was an independent celebrant for a number of years. I'm very happy. But then I did get to a point where couples, because you can see the wedding industry changes as well, and especially the requirement for Celebrant Solemnisers. And there was a lot of couples who'd say, "Hi Linda, you did my cousin's ceremony, we absolutely loved it. Please tell me you're free for our date. We want exactly what you gave her. It was so lovely." And then I'll say, "Absolutely, I'm free and everything's great." And they'll say, "And can you do the legal signing?" And I'd say, "I can't. So I can do a symbolic ceremony for you, but you'd have to go to the registry office to do the legal signing with them."
Yeah.
And for some couples, that was so important, which I completely understand. So it started to kind of stick in my throat a small bit that I couldn't offer them everything. So I was like, okay, so there's other bodies out there who can do legal signings, but I didn't really feel
drawn to them.
Nothing negative, just I didn't feel that I completely aligned with their beliefs. Until then I found Entheos and completely aligned with my beliefs. And basically it's quite simple, is that it's just all about inclusivity.
Okay.
So they want to be the yes people. So no matter what your religious beliefs, your sexual orientation, whatever it is, you can come to us and we can give you the ceremony that you want.
Okay.
So like there's loads of different examples of that too. Like I'm not religious myself at all. We did Celebrant for our wedding back in 2011.
Yeah.
But it amazes me how much I love and feel honoured to be able to give couples that. So one example I had was that there was a Jewish guy from Carmel, California, was marrying a Dublin girl, very Catholic, her family were very Catholic, but he had been divorced.
Okay.
So they couldn't get married in the church. And they were all at sea. They didn't know kind of what type of ceremony they could have, so they said we better go with a celebrant and we better get married in the venue. But when they started speaking to me and I mentioned that you can have religion in your ceremony if you wish, they couldn't believe it. She rang her mum and dad. They were so happy. So he incorporated elements of his Jewish faith in the ceremony, and her family did some Praise the Faithful. And I was shocked at how moving it was to see them all there, feeling that they were getting their wishes, even though I didn't.
But people's faith brings them a bit of comfort as well.
Absolutely.
And when you can bring, if you have that kind of comfort, I suppose, taken away from you in a sense of he felt he couldn't get married in his own church because he had been married before or whatever the reason was. It does actually give people a bit of relief to feel, we're free to do what we want and we can combine the two and celebrate both beliefs and both families.
And why can't we do that?
Exactly.
Why are there rules that you've been divorced so you can't come into our church? And anyway, that's a whole other thing.
Let's not get too far into that.
But I love the fact that you mentioned inclusivity, because one of the things I read up on it last night and it came across as it's inclusivity of all beliefs, and it's great that was the first way of you describing it, because it is an inclusive organisation from what I've read up, and at least their philosophies. And I suppose there's, like you said, there's so many different organizations and choices out there that it's kind of you can read into different organizations and we hope, and I think one of Entios's kind of philosophies is as well as is to be honest, and kind of where other organizations maybe have failed or not been inclusive or been abusive, they're like, we're going to try to be honest and inclusive and kind of be positive. And the word, it's great where they got the word from, that it's the God within, and there's a power within, and they believe whatever your beliefs are, that everybody has some sort of spark or magic within, and that's nice.
People,
that's beautiful though.
It is,
that's actually a really nice
so
sentence.
Simple.
The good within people. I love it.
Yeah. And that's great to see. So it's like when people do search and they might see different organisations and they might have a philosophy that they put out there, and I suppose Entius is the same as other organisations whereby you don't have to be part of the organisation officially or kind of be active within the organisation, whereas in some religions you do, and that's correct, and there's a faith, and that's part of that if you want to get married in a certain environment, that you're part of that organisation. But the facility of kind of other organisations is that they will do a ceremony for you.
Yes.
But the fact that you can read up on kind of their ethos and kind of their philosophy and
really nice.
find something that likes you, it's a nice thing.
And that's why I felt, okay, this is my guy.
Okay, cool.
It drew you
That's
in
lovely,
kind of thing, in a sense.
Exactly, because even though I wanted to be able to do the legal signing, it wasn't at the expense of my own beliefs. I couldn't sit down in front of a couple and talk about certain
just for the sake of
because you were given a script to read off in a way.
That these were my beliefs when they're not. You know? Maybe pretending I had a bit of religion or a bit of
Well, no, I like that honesty, and and it's lovely. But it's lovely that you're also you're happy to include anybody's beliefs and anybody's religion, and let them have the they want to have.
That did feel like an honour. And another example is maybe same-sex couples who might be religious. Never think about situations like that. Where are they going to get married? Who So it is inclusive.
Well, get married and then basically they could have a blessing or they could have a prayer that maybe they do want to go to a church, but unfortunately they can't get married in a church. So therefore they can have this ceremony and they can still do a Catholic prayer.
They can. That's exactly it. So it's to capture all those groups maybe who feel like they've been kind of rejected by their own maybe belief system. So
because I think we had a wedding ceremony once, and it was I think it was her aunt was a nun. And it wasn't in a church, it was in a hotel, but at the end of the ceremony the nun got up and did she did her own little prayer. And it was lovely. And she kind of felt like she could be involved, I suppose, in a sense. So that's and I love the way you explained that, Linda. That was actually very clear and very kind of like let people understand that it's everybody's welcome.
So before we move on, because we still have to go back to the template beforehand.
I haven't forgotten.
A great tangent, which is brilliant. But in terms of so what we're talking about Entius, there's lots of different, it's not just weddings, there's lots of different options and ceremonies for all significant parts of lives are evolving, whereby there are other options, whether it's a naming ceremony or a funeral. Entius offer those ceremonies.
So myself, just to date, I have done plenty of weddings, baby naming ceremonies, vow renewals. So I'm kind of on the brighter side of life things. I haven't yet done a funeral.
Okay.
Number one, I also have another role in my life. I have another job, so the level
You're a
of
busy lady, Linda. You are. You're lucky to even be here now and baking cakes. When did this happen?
Superwoman. But so it's kind of not being able to give that level of commitment also because if you want to kind of step into that world, you'd make connections with the funeral directors, and so they will.
Well, as the priest says, I mean, you can't predict all deaths, but certain deaths you can, because Christmas week, there's no way that you can have mass, your wedding ceremony at 12 o'clock, because there will be a funeral that week.
This priest, he won't let couples book a certain time Christmas week because it's a busy week.
They'll be dropping off like flies that week.
He wants a light week. That's what it is. He knows
it's a busy time of the year for the funerals. Oh, you have to laugh. It was very funny. He was convinced. Prediction.
He's dead right.
He's got his crystal ball.
He does.
But there are lots of options in terms of ceremonies that, in true Entius.
So I just haven't stepped into the world of funerals yet, but I know it's going to happen. In the sense, somebody will ask me to do one.
Are you happy to do? Not happy. That's a terrible phrase. Sorry. Are you okay with doing a funeral or something?
I think it'll nearly come to it that I'll feel I should.
Okay.
I think it'll be someone I know, and they'll say, Mum is unwell, and she doesn't have long. We would love you to do her ceremony, and I feel it'll nearly be.
But isn't that lovely though?
In a nice way.
That they have someone they know.
Exactly.
To bring a good bit of comfort in those
moments. It's all
moments.
about comfort, and it's all about guiding them through that
exactly.
kind of.
And not that, so it is a very sad occasion. But it wouldn't be too dissimilar to the weddings, that I would still go to the home. I'd meet them. I'd ask them questions about the person maybe who's passed away, and then we can. So there's the couple story in the weddings, whereas there would be
a life story
also.
Yeah.
And I think they're referred to as celebrations of life as well, and it is to remember that. So it's to put that across and give people an opportunity to remember
exactly
kind of people.
Exactly. And with Entheos, there's a number of kind of charitable organizations as well that they feed into and that they support. And free ceremonies that are provided. So any children's funerals. Completely, there's no charge for that. So obviously, as part of the organisation, I get paid a fee and I contribute back to the organisation, and that money is used to pay the celebrants who do these free services. So for children, for end of life wedding ceremonies and hospices and things like that. So it is a lovely circular movement. So some people are just going to always do weddings, which is absolutely fine, but it's great to know that you're doing this but you are supporting those who maybe go in and do some of the heavier lifting for some of those heavier ceremonies.
Yeah,
no,
brilliant.
it's hats off because I personally, I'm just a very sad person when it comes to funerals. I don't know. So I definitely couldn't officiate in a funeral. I'd be crying more than the people there.
And it's funny, I think you would think that too, and even at weddings, like that walk up the aisle.
I have cried at weddings.
Right up here to me, and I'm just, it's not about you, put it together, and you have to.
But isn't it amazing though the way, I think it's the atmosphere of the room and whatever music is playing, and I suppose you spend some time with people beforehand and you kind of half get to know them, and then for some reasons there's some moments and you're like, I'm actually, if it was my own life, probably wouldn't be crying.
No, you'd be.
But I don't know why I feel emotional in this moment for these people. I don't know why.
Love and support. And pride, and you just see parents and siblings and friends, and everyone is just. Weddings are special.
I think where it stands out, and probably where the emotion stands out, is where people have personalised it, and it comes their personal aspect that they put into it comes across, and that emotion feeds through. And I think that's what gets us, even if we don't know the people that well, we're kind of disconnected. But it's delivered in such a way that as humans we engage with that, which brings us perfectly back to.
I was going to say you're winding this back brilliantly, Betty. Brilliantly.
Pre-ceremony kind of template or discussion as to how people can tailor their ceremony the way they want it. And I suppose one question before we get into it is if someone says, I don't really want to go down the route of adding lots and lots and lots into it, and I don't want to tailor it, and I don't have preference for readings and music and elements, and I just want to keep it very simple. Is there scope for that whereby they just want to be guided through it, but they don't want to have elaborate ceremony?
Absolutely. My whole thing is, my job here is to tell you all your options. And after that, you are the one who's going to create your ceremony. You know, I guide you through it. I give you all your options. And even when I'm going through some of the elements or the enhancements that you can include, I'll say, you might love some of these, you might absolutely hate some of them, but I'm going to tell you them all so that you don't say, oh, that Celebrant I chatted with on Monday night, she didn't tell us that at all. Because I'm going to tell you everything. And some of them, even for me, are not something that I would go for myself, but, you know, these are your options. And so on the other side of that, if you don't want any of those, you don't have to. Now, there are certain things that have to be included in a ceremony, obviously, especially a legal ceremony. You know, there has to be like the joining of hands, the exchanging of rings, or something similar to that. You know, vows, the declaration of no impediment, which the way I do it is it's long, kind of not nice wording. It's very clunky and it's not romantic.
It's a double negative, which people get. So it's a tangled twister.
But
you're right. It can be long and kind of a tricky one to kind of get through.
So what I do actually is for the signing of the register part during the ceremony, it's like a natural break in the ceremony, and I always say to couples, there'll be some nice music playing, and your photographers will be up taking a few photographs. So I have that wording printed, and I just point to it, and they can read it quietly.
I've seen you do that.
It just has to be done within the earshot of their two witnesses and their solemnizer. So everyone, all those people are up by the table anyway, so they just read it quietly. So they don't have to say that on mic unless they want to. And then I just have them saying, I do, in front of everybody, and obviously then they have the option to write their own vows, which is so beautiful, those who do. And those who don't, that's absolutely fine. No one is going to say they never share their own vows, you know.
But you don't. I think you still see it more that they don't share their own vows than you see it that they do. Now you see loads of people that do, but I think the majority still don't. I think they still go by the scripted part that you would have, kind of thing, just to repeat after me, kind of part of it. But before, you know, because couples say this to me before they meet us. So say they've kind of booked in their meeting with you. This is their final consultation with you to go through all the details. And as people say, well, what do I need to do before? Like, what do I need to know? What do I need to prepare? What's my homework before I meet you, Linda? Do they need to kind of have a lot of things planned before they meet you, or can they just go in completely kind of blind and then you lead them through it, or what's the best way for couples to kind of approach that?
For me, you have all types. You have people who know exactly what they want, and a lot of the time I start by saying, have you been to a celebrant-led ceremony before? Now you would think, like most of these couples are in their 20s, early 30s, most of the time, you would think that they have because they're so popular now, but it still shocks me how many people haven't.
Okay, I retract, Laura was right.
I did hear you say that last night, Laura.
Thank you, Linda.
I think I've been stitched up.
No, it is true. Like, because I do, because you be chatting to people before the wedding, and they be asking me a million questions, and then I go, have you been to a wedding outside of a church setting? And they go, oh no, I've never been to this before. I don't know what's happening. I don't know how this works.
It surprises me.
It does surprise me too.
That way in a couple of years' time, because there's so many now. But I normally, I don't lead with that, but I normally ask that early on, because then I know, okay, they've seen some before and they might have an idea what they want.
They might have went to 10 last year.
Exactly.
Because 10 of their friends might have done it last year the same way.
And then if that is the case, case, I say, okay, so you probably know what you want, or more importantly, what you don't want. So then I let them lead it a bit. So, but sometimes they've never been to one before, so completely blind, and they don't know anything, which is great. I kind of do the same with both, but I think I just maybe let the couple lead a bit more if they've been to one before and they kind of know what they want.
Yeah.
But talking about, I know you were talking about template and questionnaire and all that, so I'm looping back.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll have you from now on. You can just be a resident.
Facilitator.
And if somebody knows nothing, is there kind of like do you give them a guide document, or kind of endless options, or how do you approach that?
I actually don't. I know a lot of celebrants do, have a questionnaire that they'll send out to couples.
Yeah.
I think I kind of keep that because I want to talk through it with the couple.
So they understand.
Rather than sending it to them and they fill it out, they may be parts but they don't understand, so then they might just move on. So that's what I do at my consultation, is that I go through with them. So I'm like, okay, so these are options, and I'll explain each option. Or, okay, vows, have you thought about, you must say this wording, but I explained this, I'll have it printed. Or you can write your own. If you want to write your own, these are your options.
Okay.
So I kind of use that rather than sending it to them and they kind of are going through it by themselves. I use that as our speaking point.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay.
So yes, I have questions.
Yeah.
And on the vows, would you give them any advice if they are writing their own vows? Do you kind of just let them work away and then they do their own vows? Do you give them any advice on vows? Do you tailor vows like if they're under the vows? Because everyone's different. And
What I do is I'd say to them, if they do want to write their own vows, I say have a little discussion between the two of you, just so that you're going to try and agree loosely a tone and a length.
Yeah.
And then
we did our own vows. He was very emotional, and I just laughed away my own.
So mean. But I suppose on the flip side is it's like we were our own people. We took our own approach. So
I knew he was going to cry on our wedding day, and I knew I wasn't going to cry, and I knew to stop myself from crying. So if I started, I wouldn't stop. Yeah. I went on the very lighter humour side of vows, whereas it was a bit more kind of like
I actually meant it, so deep down I wanted a love marriage, and Laura just wanted a real marriage. She wasn't giving me the emotion.
So you kind of that is because we're pretty we're pretty easygoing in life. But to some people it could be. You are right though. It could be a bit like the first person goes and you're like, oh my god, that was so emotional. That was beautiful, and you look in your own going, yes. Oh God, I went the whole other way.
That's exactly it. And that's why I say it's not for the guests. This is not a performance. This is just about you and you're speaking to each other. But where I would feel for sometimes is if somebody brought the romance and really heartfelt and so beautiful, and then I don't think you do feel bad about it.
No,
I don't. If you
but
did,
if it was unexpected,
feel, oh, I feel so bad because you said such beautiful things and I just kidded around. And so I just say that to couples, and that's fine. That's your personality. They're very clear.
If you know it's coming, or if you know you expect it when it does happen, you kind of like that's okay because that is that person. But I suppose you're right. If really kind of like you knew the person could have been a certain way and you thought they were going to go a certain way, but they don't deliver that to you, and then that you kind of get that in the moment.
And it's just for the person who does those vows that they don't feel bad. It's not even for the recipient because they love you and they know you're a great crack and all that stuff. It's for maybe if you feel, oh, I wish I had taken a bit more seriously because you're not going to get to do it again.
No.
So it's just more advice in that sense. And then also if people are like, we don't know where to start, but we just want something very simple, but we do want to say something, I'm like, you could even just agree 3 promises. And that's very simple.
That's
and
a
one
nice
of the promises could be a bit funny, it could be a bit personal, I promise to wash your soccer kid or whatever it might be, whatever it might be. And then I do say to them, if you want to send them to me separately and I can kind of weigh them for romance and length. Again, I won't be obviously I won't be cutting anything or suppressing anyone's personality, but that might be a point when I might say, that's
very funny.
You overstayed one.
Romantic thing. I know. We had a couple once, and they were very funny, like very, very witty kind of people, and they were doing their own vows, and it was so funny. The celebrant they had said to them that the vows had to be the exact same length, and kind of gave them a word count, I suppose, if that makes sense. So I thought this was quite funny. So this groom being this groom, because he's bold, he's bold, he literally said to her, okay, so how many words are in your vows? And he went and wrote exactly to the word his vows. And I was like, that's very funny. But I suppose it's good in a sense that you're not giving too much rules or limits on couples, because I found one of the hardest parts when he really wanted to do our own vows, and I was really like, oh god, this is like, because I don't like writing, especially, so it's hard enough to write things, but hard emotional things, and then to say it out loud in front of everyone, it's huge. So I think I found writing my own vows one of the hardest parts pre-wedding. And then I left it go until I think it was 48 hours before Linda, because I just couldn't. I couldn't get myself to write them down. But if somebody had given me too many, you can't, you have to. Oh, I would have been like, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. Yeah, we're just going to go back to the other ones.
That's why you give those various different options to make 3 promises, if that's all you want.
That's lovely. No, that makes sense.
If someone's not verbal or really doesn't want to do it,
lots are coming out in these podcasts.
And they want to have a little extra action. I suppose there's so many different options now in terms of and there's lots of people are coming up with great ideas and making it personal. Whether it's like the tradition is obviously the hand fasting, because that's like an ancient tradition, and then there's like. It goes all the way to like sand pouring and wine boxes and vodka boxes, and then one of the great ones was kind of like someone they were doing an oak tree, but actually so a mother kind of like raised the oak tree and kind of brought it up to a certain point so that it was ready for the ceremony and it's fledgling and it's ready to go into their new home. Beautiful. And it's good mark. So lots of people are coming up with lots of different ways, but there are lots of different elements or actions.
What's the one you see the most?
I think, you know what, the traditional one that we all know from the church ceremony, the candle lighting, which we forget actually is a ritual.
You just take it as a given there, like the fact that I didn't even mention it there.
But I also think that is a really good one, because sometimes, and I do ask couples as well, is there anybody maybe in your families who's holding any tension with the fact that it's not a church ceremony? And sometimes people might say, normally someone would say, your mom or...
My grandfather, on the day he passed, was still asking me when I'm actually getting married. Because we didn't go to the church. So that was just a different generation. So you are right, there is some people that are like, I can't believe we're not now here with a priest.
So I ask that question, and sometimes there is, normally it's a grandparent or maybe a parent, and I always say to them, you know what, let's begin with the candle lighting ceremony, because at least that's something familiar to them. And when they come in, they're like, what's this about? What's this a wedding? It's in a hotel, what's going on? And then they see them light the candles at the beginning of the ceremony, and it can actually be a nice little leveler. They're like, okay, I recognise that. This now is a ceremony of sorts, and it can actually nearly relax them. You nearly see them kind of going, okay. And then so many times, what for me is the biggest compliment of all is when people like that come up afterwards and say, that was so beautiful. You know? So that is so lovely. So I still think the candle lighting is really nice. The symbolism is lovely. The two individual
flames
candles.
and fire, there is something magic to it.
Fire,
a bit of fire.
Unless it's outdoors in the rain.
We've done that with the flamethrower.
Exactly.
We had a flamethrower, so we had a rain one. Insisted on not letting the weather get at her wedding. But we had flamethrowers in the rain once.
It was really cool. Not in the ceremony now.
Evening entertainers. But it was kind of like, it was big enough that there was going to be flamethrowers there, fire breathers, but the fact that now it started to rain and it really created a mad
it was
atmosphere.
cool.
Was it?
Everyone didn't care.
I suppose the place was
and they didn't care. That was completely off subject, but go on. And then with the candle lighting as well, like a lot of time you see that you'd have two different people light the outer candles, and then the couple light the middle one, which is really nice.
It's a nice way to involve family members. That they can get maybe, you know, and I never assume, obviously that's another thing, especially with Entius, with my training with Entius, was also just to be so aware of everybody's different situations.
That's right.
So now I don't refer to the bride and groom anymore, I refer to the couple. Because it's not always a bride and groom. I don't refer to, is your dad going to walk you down the aisle? Because maybe the dad isn't with us anymore. Maybe the dad's not on the scene.
Make it into the car now, you know, we're breaking down all barriers. Mum is allowed to go in the car.
Yeah, I heard this too, and I think that's a great idea.
One of the partners.
But it's true though, poor mom in the morning.
Parents are walking their child up the aisle as well.
Couples are walking each other up the aisle.
Exactly.
There's lots going on. Lots going on.
Loads of different ways. People are doing their own way, which is fantastic.
So and then I suppose when there's so for the elements, and I call them elements because well that's the word. Would you use the word elements as well?
Or
rituals. So like I suppose we probably do, and to the point of I have to remind myself to ask the couple, are you doing candle lighting? Because you see it at probably like 97% of weddings in the year that like you have to remind yourself, but check in because it'll be the one day they say to me, we're not doing that ritual or that element. And then I suppose when there's kids involved, the ones that we would see the most would be the sand pouring. Do you see a lot of that with kids?
Sand is lovely. I see it mostly with kids, and it's absolutely fantastic I think when maybe there's a blended family, if there's been kids maybe from a previous relationship, because then to see them all all like joining together as one, and you know the symbolism is that once the sands are poured into the centre vase, it can no longer be separated back to its original colour or form, just as E4, 5, 6 are joining together as one and can no longer be separated. Like what's happening here today is going to bond you together forever. So it is so lovely. But then also some couples, even without kids, are doing sand blending ceremonies, more so for couples if maybe there's maybe one from Ireland, one from South Africa. A couple who we both spoke to recently. And he would bring sand from the beach where he grew up nearby, and she would have sand from Ireland. But I do also give one example of somebody who travelled from California to get married and married a girl from Ireland, and his mum brought sand from a beautiful Californian beach, and her brother ran down to the beach the morning of the wedding and got sand from...
I know exactly what you're going to say.
From Clonakilty, and the sand from California poured into the centre vase. You could hear angels singing, and then the other sand just went plunk, clunk, clunk.
We've seen wet sand quite a few times as well.
Try the sand.
So I'll never make that mistake again. I always say to couples now, make sure you get in advance, lay it flat on a baking tray, put it into the oven, and then sieve it.
This is back to the baking. Make sure it's the good stuff. It's the good stuff.
Exactly. So sand blending can be lovely if there's reason behind it, and that's what I always say too about the rituals. You don't have to throw everything in it. At the ceremony, because it can become a bit circusy. But then I also say, but if you want to, we're doing
if that's what you want, that's
exactly.
And I suppose it is one thing whereby a lot of people, like, there's so much to a wedding day, but the ceremony is such a key part, and it really is, I think, to the couple as well, is like, that's so important, and that bit of saying I do and legally kind of binding together is like, it is so important. So there's no need to rush it either if you want to enjoy it.
Absolutely. And I do think it's becoming more important than maybe what it was before. I think maybe it was considered as the part that once we get that over and done with, then we can get on with the rest of the day. Whereas I think now, because it can be so personalised, it is becoming a bit more special and fun. It can be fun.
It can.
We can laugh, we can joke, we can say bold things if you want to say bold things. We can, we know in the couple story section.
Exactly.
And for that's bringing that up, the couple story section. Do you write that script yourself? Do you get a bit of background and then you kind of put it together, or how does that work?
Exactly. So, like at the consultation, we'll sit and we'll go through everything that they want to include in the ceremony, the rituals, the enhancements, readings, everything else that goes in. And then also I will then say, okay, do you want to get another cup of coffee? And then I start asking them questions.
So you caffeinate them and then you ask them, okay.
Do you want to get another glass of wine? If they're having a glass of wine when we're going through it all.
And think it come out.
Exactly. But what I do reassure them is that anything that you say to me now while we're chatting and I'm asking all these questions, I will be sending that to you word for word. So if there's anything in it that you change your mind about, or you're driving home in the car and you're like, what did you tell her that for? I don't want her telling everybody that on the day of our wedding. Then it'll be taken out. So I send the whole couple story to the couple for editing, for taking out, or for maybe correcting me. Maybe I pick something up wrong. I don't want to do that on the day.
Because timeline and stuff is very important.
Because a lot of people, the love story or the story of the couple is kind of like that is becoming a big part of a ceremony. But some couples aren't even aware that celebrants do that. So I actually think it's really nice that you do that. So one, it's aware that you're actually going to go into it, and you're going to go into it in such depth, and they can kind of go say, actually, we don't want you to go into it in that depth.
That would be my nightmare if I thought that I included anything in the ceremony where couples, and I say that even when I said to them, I'm like, here it is attached. It's so important that you are happy with this, that when this begins during the ceremony, that you are excited and that you're not going, no, she's going to say that thing that's going to make me cringe. It has to come out. You know, it's so important that you're happy with this.
Yeah, that's great.
But that is great room for fun this way.
It is, because we've heard some very funny love stories, and very funny stories about like how they met and things like that. Like I find myself laughing out loud. I'm like, Laura, calm down. Because it is a lovely way to kind of, I suppose, speak about the couple, like from, I suppose you're kind of like, you're the voice for them on the day, rather instead of them standing up and going, here's some information about me.
And I even say that to couples when I meet them and we're going through that couple story section. Afterwards they say, that was lovely, and I'm like, but when did you ever sit down and say, well, we met in 2006
You're not going
in
to.
this nightclub, and he shimmied up to me in a Hawaiian shirt, and I was like, that was me and my husband's story. I was like, what the hell, who's this guy?
He shimmied up to you in a Hawaiian shirt. It sounds like they get on.
I can shimmy.
Exactly. So, but like, when are you ever going to sit down and tell someone?
I don't think I've ever sat somewhere and been like, right now, so tell you about myself, right?
Exactly.
So what this date and
So I think the whole process is really nice for couples. And I feel they go away and they go home in the car and they're like, we really enjoyed that. That was so lovely.
Yeah.
So then they're excited for that to be told to their family and friends on the day. You know?
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, and the great thing about the ceremonies that we've done with you, Linda, as well, is like, so obviously you've got your own role as the celebrant and you've got all this information that you have to go through and processes, and like there's little things that make ceremonies. So the ceremonies are beautiful, and you know the words and everything said and the actual actions, but you have a lovely way of forgetting about the fact that there's photographers and videographers, you know, capturing moments and all those bits and pieces. But you have a lovely way of, you know, setting things up where, for example, at the start, where if they are lighting candles, that, you know, you bring them around the table and you face them out to the guests so that, you know, everybody sitting there can actually see that this is what's happening now. And this is, you know, if someone starts laughing, that's why they're laughing, because the candle wouldn't light, or rather than just asking them to stand with their back to the room and everyone's kind of doing this and they're doing this and what's happening. They do disengage. You're 100% right. And like it's kind of, and it's you've got this lovely way of like, as I said at the start, you never seem to get flustered or panicky or anything. Everything is just at a nice, steady pace. It makes the difference in a ceremony that the celebrant just feels comfortable. They know what's happening next. They're like, okay, we're going to be doing this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the 10 seconds it takes to walk you around and show you to everyone. And I'm not like, and obviously for us, then that has massive benefits when, you know, you give them the wedding photos and videos afterwards. But I never really think, when I see couples standing with their back to the room, I actually never really think of, like, Ben plays a different angle. We'll have something. We'll document the moment. I never worry about those things, but I always stand there thinking, well, if I can't see what's going on, no one else in the room knows what's going on. And especially when it comes to, so like if it's a candle lighting, I suppose you could use your imagination. They're lighting candles, I have an idea. You might miss a joke because they've got the back to you, kind of think someone messed up or something, and it's part of it.
Like a handshake.
Exactly, yeah, like literally holding, the pure fear. But then there's elements, and like you touched on it, that like, you know, not everybody has been to wedding ceremonies outside of a church, and if they have, they probably haven't been to many, so they haven't seen all of the rituals or all the elements that can be brought in. So if you're doing something like a sand pouring or a hand fastening, or, you know, the wine and love letters that go into a box, that's not something that we see maybe a handful of times in the year, where they write a letter to each other, they pick their favorite drink and they put it in a box, and then they decide a date they're going to open it, or a reason they're going to open it. So if somebody's doing that, and you, again, they've just got their back to their, sure, it's lost.
Exactly.
What's the point? In like, I know there's a point that, you know, the couple have done it for themselves, but they've invited all these people to be part of it.
Exactly.
And it's so important.
And that's what I always say to the couple also, like, you know, bring them around the back of the table, particularly to light the candles, especially if they're doing it themselves at the beginning of the ceremony. Because I say to them, you know, you'll be a bit nervy, you'll be walking up the aisle, and actually it's great. Well, I'm going to bring you straight in, I'm going to turn you around, and you're going to look down that room at everybody, and then all the nerves are going to melt away, because you're going to see all the smiling faces, all the love, everybody's there. And again, that's a similar thing to couples, you know, who sit maybe with their backs to their guests, which is absolutely fine. Again, it's whatever you want. There's layers to everything, and the couple decides.
And I think the space dictates that sometimes as well.
But I do also say that some couples say, oh no, we want to sit with our backs to our guests because we'll be so nervous. And I'll say, if you want to sit with your back to your guests, 100%, that's how you'll sit. But let me just say to you that if it's because you're nervous, you'll probably be more nervous with your back to your guests.
Because you can't see the reactions.
And you're going to have to get up at some point to exchange rings or do something. And then all the nerves kick off again. And then they say, you know, I didn't think about it like that. So it's about kind of predicting how they're going to feel on the day, and using all of our experience with previous ceremonies to say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? You know?
No, but it was just something that I've noticed with you, and it's not just even with the couple, it's with, you know, the bridesmaids when they're standing or where they're going to, or, you know, giving a bridesmaid a second to fix a dress because she spent time and she wants to flick it out and show it off, kind of thing. Or if there's musicians there, and a lot of time there is live music in a ceremony, you know, giving them a little nod to be like, you know, oh well, you know, it's time for this song, kind of thing. thing, let's go. And do you know, if it's a song that the couple are really looking forward to listening to, just give it a moment to play. And do you know, it's just something that I always feel like when we're doing a ceremony together, I never feel like, right, Laura, quick, because they're gonna move on to the next thing really quickly.
Rushed.
Or
okay, that's good to hear.
do you know, no, it is lovely, because I kind of feel like, you know, well, if I feel relaxed about, like, you know, we're just taking a moment to enjoy this part that we've planned, rather than, oh, that's enough of that, or move on to that. Then if I feel that way, the chances are everybody else in the room also feels that way. And it's and I'm bringing it up because it's not an easy thing to do, and you're probably doing it so often that you're kind of just, it's second nature to you, you're an autopilot in a way, but you probably don't realise how lovely it is that the way you do things. And I just wanted to bring it up because
I'm coming down here again next time.
No, because it's not something that you see. Obviously every ceremony ever has different ways of doing things, but it's just something that when I hear your name, I'm like, oh, lovely.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's genuine. Yeah,
it is good. I think just as we talk about couples booking their photographer or their celebrant, and that has to be, it also happens with suppliers.
Of course.
Yeah,
there are suppliers that you're just going to click with more. Even before last ceremony, Benny, you were like, Linda, are you okay? I'm going to stand centre now as they're coming up. And I was like, of course.
Yeah.
And then Benny was like, you go right and I'll go left. And I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
But even just having that,
because it was a very tight room, so we were in a small room, so it's kind of, you gotta be careful, and it's very easy whereby we could just at the start be bumping, and I don't want to turn and walk into you, and you're actually trying to get your first words in, so it's very important that you're comfortable as well.
That coordination is so important.
It's
so
huge.
it is I also get excited when I look and I see who the suppliers are and say, yes, I know it's all going to, and ye care, and I said this to a couple recently, who've been in touch with you, I think, ye care about your couple so much.
Oh, we do, yeah.
Like, you would go, you go and fight for them if something's happening. Like, you're not photographers.
I kind of go mama bear, and sometimes I'm a bit like, oh, you can't be doing that to that person now. You let them enjoy their day. Don't do that.
And it's not for you want photographs, so we're going to get you the best photographs at any expense. It's not that either.
No, God, no.
We want you to enjoy it. We don't want to upset you or your family. But we are here, and also I never even know you're there.
That's the best compliment that we want to hear, to be honest. That's what we want to hear, because we don't want to be.
But first and foremost, it is like, if the couple are getting married, that's why we're all here. And then it's a family day.
Exactly.
So it's like, if someone from outside of your family was butting in, doing something, nobody would want it in their family. So it's like, we're people first, and then we're happy with photography afterwards. And I think that is approach, and I think that's your approach as well.
And then I suppose, like, one of my favourite things at a ceremony is children. They bring the crack.
Exactly.
Was it Sean and Sean's wedding? The one here. I popped this up here so I could be like, I'm going to change all these around, Benny. I'm very proud of myself now. I popped this here. This was actually their speeches, and their little fella was she didn't know he was going to do the speech.
No way.
Oh, yeah. She was trying to hold in the tears, but he got up and did a speech, and the two lads were like, ha, we caught you. It was brilliant. They made her cry eventually. But I remember, so we had an outdoor ceremony for that. It was beautiful. So again, like outdoor ceremony, obviously you've got more space and everything, and it was lovely. But I remember, was it there, they have a little girl as well, and do you remember, she walked up the aisle and she had flowers in a basket, and I think she was a little bit nervous, so she wasn't really like, throwing the flowers on the way up. But when she got to the top, it was great. Her dad, the groom, he picked her up, and then do you remember? I've a lovely photo of it. He helped her empty the basket everywhere, and it was kind of one of those things where this moment. The reason I'm bringing this up is this moment happened because we were there capturing it, but we're off in the distance and we're letting them have their moment.
Exactly.
You were there knowing that their music is cued, the groom is ready, and the aisle walk is happening. So you're standing off as well, just kind of letting it happen. Exactly, Linda. So I think if like, and if somebody had come up and been like, stepped in and, oh, you sit down there, love. This beautiful moment wouldn't have happened. And it's kind of like, it's just a small example it's the way you approach things. And it was lovely that day, because I love when kids are at weddings, and aisle walks are absolutely, and you've seen it the way I've seen it, they're absolutely hilarious what they get up to. And it either goes brilliantly and you're like, I cannot believe that they were that good in that moment, or it's an absolute disaster and it's hilarious.
I nearly prefer the disasters. Because I say to couples, I can stand up there for 3 hours and talk about love if you want me to. But let's keep it short, sweet, let's keep it to the point, let's make it all about you and make it personal. And what I always say is, if something goes wrong, let's work with that, because that's what people are going to remember.
Oh, yeah.
I can say love is this and love, but really it's when the kids do something funny, or the dog has like rings attached to his collar.
Oh, the fear.
And he's bringing them up, and he's just at the end of the aisle shaking, and the rings are going flying, which happened.
Did it?
And that's happened.
Oh,
and everyone was scrambling around.
Did the rings fall off the collar?
The rings fell off the collar and rolled under. I was like, just a ribbon.
They found them, yeah?
They were someone was trying to stick like the box in onto the collar. They found them.
Okay.
No
right. Okay.
But like those things you'd say like that I don't get flustered. I loved that.
Yeah.
Because everybody loved it. There was nudging. The dog has dropped the rings, and it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be perfect. In actual fact,
it's better if it's
cringy, but it's perfect in its imperfections sometimes.
Perfect doesn't exist, and it really doesn't. We all aim for perfection, but it's a goal we'll never get
so
to.
They never work with kids and animals, and I'm like, bring them on. I love it. I love it.
No, and because people do bring their, and you obviously, because I know you're a dog person because my dog welcomed you at the door, and you spent 10 minutes in my kitchen, literally on the ground playing with her. But so obviously, like, cause some people say that to me, they're like, they're very good about it. They'll say, oh, we have 2 large dogs, and they're like our children, and we really want to bring them. I'm just checking in with you. Are you okay with dogs? And it's so nice of people to actually check.
I know, it is
like,
sweet.
are you okay? Because I suppose not everybody's okay with that. So obviously, if you want to bring your dogs to the wedding, Linda's up for it.
100%. I encourage it. I'm always like, is she coming to the wedding? They're like, no, she's absolutely crazy, so she won't be coming. And I'm like, oh no. But obviously, I completely get it too, because then it can be another headache for a couple.
Big time.
It's too much. And also, sometimes it's not fair in the dog.
That's right.
Because there's a lot of clapping, and there's a lot of stuff as well.
Strange environment.
They'd want to be pretty cool and calm about the whole situation.
But people know people know their dogs. And their kids. Sometimes.
And I suppose because you kind of have touched on it there, so there's still, and we've talked this round in circles when it comes to timing of bits and pieces. So a lot of the thing, we'll be chatting to couples before the wedding, and like if they say a name like yourself, I'm like, okay, I have an idea of how long Linda's. I'll ask them what their elements are and how much music and stuff, and then I know it's you. So I'm like, okay, the ceremony's going to be around this long kind of thing. I'll know in my head. Obviously, I don't know every celebrant, so you have to kind of take a guess. But you'd ask some couples sometimes, and did the celebrant give you an idea of how long the ceremony will be, kind of thing, based on what you've added and their love story and the all walks and everything? And I still get told sometimes, 20 minutes. So so the schedule is, Laura, so 2 to 2:30 is the ceremony, right? And then from 2:30 to 3 we'll be doing the photos, and by 3:15 we'll be in the drinks reception. And I'm kind of looking and kind of going, 3:15 now we might be finished the receiving line if we're lucky.
It's not as simple as that. And even I always say like, that'll be around a half an hour, but then it even shocks me that it might be a bit longer. Or and it's so funny because when I'm meeting with couples, it's always the guy. It's like this one question: how long will it be? It's always the guy asks that. But also I remind them that it goes so quickly.
It does.
Like the whole day goes so quickly.
Yeah.
But the ceremony as well. And that's why I just say, try your best to enjoy it. Don't worry about anything. Try not to. I'm not saying don't, because that can be difficult. But try not to worry about it. And try to sit back and listen to every word. And, especially if you're sharing vows, look at the person. Sometimes it doesn't always happen. And sometimes they look at me
it's tricky.
and
I was just about to say,
that's a bit freaky.
You're there guiding them through it. So both of them are looking at Linda and it's kind of like,
and I just do this look. And then they go, but it's those little things that like, come on, be in the moment as much as you can. And I know it's difficult,
but if you add in 4 songs, 3 readings, a couple of elements of whatever it is, it's like it's not going to be 20 minutes.
Exactly.
It's more like 30, 40 minutes.
But the thing to understand is that's fine.
Exactly.
So if your ceremony is 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes long, that's the length of your ceremony.
Exactly.
But it's just more, I suppose, you would be good at it as well, it's the advice you give to someone. So based on what we've just planned out, that's a 40-minute ceremony.
Exactly.
So you go, but at least I know that now. So I can plan the rest of my day around it. Whereas, giving someone advice where you've added in every element you can imagine. You've got 5 or 6 songs thrown in. You've got a huge aisle walk with a load of children. You've got 300 people coming to the wedding.
That's not going to be 20 minutes.
No, it can't be. It can't be. And the thing about it is as well, obviously no bride or groom wants to be late for their wedding, but on time is never the exact, especially when you're in, I suppose you would be in a lot of wedding venues and a lot of hotels and places. There's a bar available to the guests, ringing that bell, trying to get them to get from the bar
shepherding
to
them in.
their seat. And like the bride or the groom or whoever's walking up the aisle, they can't walk until everyone's seated. So like it's not that you're late, it's just that this is the time it's starting. Do you know, this is the estimate we gave for the start time, and it usually happens 5-10 minutes afterwards. And these are all things that like you know and I know that we just kind of have to factor in so that you don't feel stressed or pressured.
After about 10 minutes before the ceremony starts, I stop looking. It doesn't really matter anymore, you know, except when you might say, you know, because you'll be with the bride, you might say, on the way, I think we're getting it there now, there's a last minute adjustment, Laura's stitching up the
back of the dress or something,
but you know, you'd kind of give a nod, but I'm just like, whenever, I'm ready, I'm here, I'm ready, and then we get the nod, and then we formally begin, but most, I've never had a very, very late bride or groom.
We've had one or two, but like, it wasn't their fault. It really wasn't on them, it was, you know, something else happened, or you know, something that wasn't factored in, and that can happen, will happen, I find. You know, you think you're on time and then someone turns around and goes, I forgot the bouquet. Like this has happened like twice. One girl actually drove 20 minutes over, 20 minutes back to get the bouquet. And I was like, we could have just given you one of the bridesmaids one. It would have been totally fine. But it was grand. It was grand. We made it up.
I watch all the wedding shows. I watch like Married at First Sight. I'm ashamed to say.
I've never watched
Australia, just the Australian one. But somebody last night forgot her bouquet and she just jumped a ditch and just grabbed some foliage.
I like it.
But I was like, I wouldn't have noticed the difference.
Brilliant.
So that's a tip for the next time.
There you go,
Linda's like, to all the florists out there, sure, all they're doing is they're jumping ahead.
Yes, no disrespect to any of the wonderful florists,
But
is there any other topics that you wanted to cover?
No,
Did I go and cover it all?
The conversation was finished about 20 minutes ago.
Oh no, myself and Linda will keep
Laura
going.
just manages to get the conversation going again.
Keep
No,
going.
I just like to thank Linda for coming in and really, really great.
Because I know you're busy, Linda. Because you know you got the work, you got the weddings, you got the children, you got the baking.
You
got like
But I think aren't we all busy?
I know.
We're all busy.
I like being busy.
I like being busy too.
I work better busy.
Exactly. And do you know, I always say like it's like the wedding industry is, I think it's a total life less ordinary, isn't it? You know, here I am down in your home, you know, meeting your banshee dog, and you know, it's lovely. It takes you places.
No, it does. It is, and you get to meet lovely people, which is my favourite part about it, to be honest with you.
So thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
I'm honoured.